inside the all-new House of Public Discourse Radio.com. The house is an area in social media where individuals can come together to discuss societal issues, and from that discussion influence political action. Welcome to the house,
where our house is your house.
Welcome everybody to the Progressive Talk Zone. I'm your host, Johnny Hill. We're streaming live from our broadcast studios here on the all-new House of Public Discourse Radio.com inside the House of Public Discourse Forum on your Facebook page. We got a lot to talk about today. Got some exciting guests on the show, Mr. Ken Whitfield, member of the House of Public Discourse and also a founding member of the Foundations Movement. We have the Salvation Rose in the house with us this evening. And we're going to be talking about the Foundation Movement. We're going to be talking about the Rational Handbook, a recent book that myself and Ken and Mr. Rich Romine, who should be joining us shortly. We want to talk about that. But before we get started, are we not living in some incredible, extraordinary times, guys? Look what's going on. Look what's going on before us, before our very eyes. We've got a political and societal divide in this country that none of us has ever seen before in our lifetime.
Not like this.
I've been sick. I've been unable to get in here and produce the Progressive Talk Zone. But I'm proud to report that I'm feeling a lot better. And I don't think it could come at any better time than right now, because we are living in a time of change. And if people cannot handle change, there's a thing called cognitive dissonance that keeps people from accepting change.
Also, if they are afraid of the mass psychosis because of our media, has also made, because of Fox News, has made people so afraid that they become panic-stricken, that they look for any solution, and they regress to a childlike level, which is basically the seed of totalitarianism. It's where you're trying to give a parental figure complete control over your life. So it's an infantile reaction to the stress and strain, which is mainly caused by artificial means, whipping up hysteria, fear, artificial shortages, and the like, And the right wing is very good at it.
Well, the right wing, we have done over the years, we have followed the politics of fear and anger that we get from the GOP.
And hatred. Yeah.
It all mingles in together. And what we are seeing, and Ken, I'd like to get your thoughts on this. What we are seeing, for lack of term, is the head of the pimple coming to the tip of the nose.
And it's a white head.
And it cannot be ignored anymore. Ken, you have done some phenomenal writing for the Rational Handbook. And I just love your perspective on things, and I would like to get your feelings on where you think we're at right now as far as a nation and as a country.
Well, to give a little perspective to it, I've been talking the last 3 or 4 days with a friend of mine in Florida, in Fort Lauderdale area, who's trying to decide what to do with her 3 kids who want to go to school starting this week. And she and I think a lot alike, which is why we're friends. But I just called her up, texted her up a week ago and wanted to know what she was going to do about school with her 3 kids. She's got, let's see, I forget their ages, but they're all under 10.
Boy, yeah.
And Mr. DeSantis is making things difficult there. And
right.
She's already had COVID. She got the vaccine and she had a breakthrough infection. And two of her kids got it also, and her husband, who refused to take the vaccine, got really sick, and he's still in and out of the hospital. So
Right.
of course, she's a little, not a little, very apprehensive about sending her kids off to school, and then bringing home whatever they bring home.
Right.
So
Yeah, really, to finish off the dad,
yeah,
that'll be the end of him.
yeah. So
Well,
yeah,
and
it's
and also, Mr. Ken, I what is your thoughts about the voter suppression? While rightfully so, the mask mandate issue is created and gulped up a bunch of the news. But while all that was going on, we're seeing the most aggressive, on steroids attack on voting rights that they're trying to overturn everything Martin Luther King fought and died for. The poor
Oh,
people,
absolutely.
the poor
Absolutely.
people's campaign, which is gaining steam in this country, is under attack from the radical right wing. And Mr. Ken, you have written so eloquently about this. Could you expound on that a little bit for us?
well, from my point of view, this has been going on for years. I mean, I can remember when I was 18, 19, just starting to vote, and being convinced at that time that my vote didn't count. So why even vote? And Reagan came
Right.
along, and I realized that if we don't speak up, we don't get to voice our opinion, and the only way we can speak up really nowadays is by our vote. So yeah, I mean that's been ongoing for me for 50 years. But lately, this really is all about the fact that Republicans can't win an election if their lives depended on it, because they don't appeal
No.
to the majority of Americans.
No, they don't.
No.
And me and Chris, I'm going to get you to jump in here after I make this point. This point that you're making, Ken, is something that we have been following here in the House of Public Discourse for quite some time now.
Mhm.
It's the changing demographics, especially in the South, where Lee Atwater's Southern strategy is no longer the effective tool that it was.
Mhm.
And what we have seen in response to that is the most aggressive aggregate of voter suppression in the history of the United States.
Mhm.
And I think while we're sitting around and rightfully so, worried about people wearing a mask and fussing and fighting over that stuff, we've got people, the oligarchs, who are working overtime to disenfranchise as many people from the process as they can.
Mhm.
Of course, that's how they can maintain their artificial control. And of course, the Supreme Court just said it was totally okay for individual states to gerrymander to their heart's content. Wow! Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Well, we wrote an article, back in 2014 entitled "Has Liberty Given Way to Gerrymandering?" And I think that the answer to the question is pretty clear that it has.
Yeah.
Last week they did this decision. Last week. I mean, this is a disaster. It's a disaster. That on top of the voter suppression, I mean, we are going to have our hands full.
Yes.
Well,
even without the fact that they have no majority anywhere anymore. So this is a dying extinct party. This is the death rows.
Go ahead,
Well,
Ken.
The Southern death cult.
like I was saying, this is all a concerted plan by them. You can see it from what they just did with the information released from the DOJ about the attempt to get them to help Trump keep get the vote, get his election back. And this is all part of the plan there. They cannot win elections. They don't have a platform at all. And all they're doing is fighting a cultural war to deflect attention away from the real problems that need to be solved in this country,
Right.
which they don't want to solve.
Right.
But 17 of them did want to solve them. That's why we got that little bill passed. But that's mainly symbolic. Still, it was a small victory against the Trumpazoids, and anything is good for us that makes them appear in the bad light that they actually operate in, which is bad faith all the way. So we are making some progress. Does anybody know if that 3.3 trillion passed today? By the way,
it did pass.
The 3.3 trillion passed.
I believe it did. I can get up to speed on it real fast here, but Chris, also to kind of expound on the Trumpism issue and this whole steal the vote and all of this type of thing. No one has covered the corruption of the Trump administration more thoroughly than you have.
There's a lot of it, yeah.
And what I think rings so true to this broadcaster is the fact that people, no matter the corruption, no matter the indignation of it all, they're not going to accept that this guy is a lunatic because he is their authoritarian figure. He is their lack of term messiah, if you will.
Well,
he's
the only
a cup of tea. Yeah.
The only reason he is, though, is because he's been able to get such a big audience of voters. That's the only reason that they are allowing Trump to do what he's doing, not realizing that putting a man like that in position, he's going to do it for himself, not for the good of the party.
Right.
I'm live.
Yeah. So they screwed up when they let him take over the party, and now they're paying the price for it
in a major way. And what I am finding is that there are people that know they made a mistake.
Yeah.
With Donald Trump, but they won't publicly admit it, Mr. Ken.
Well, Republicans don't do that anyway. To admit failure, to admit they made a mistake, is a weakness to them. And despite the fact that the best successful people have failed at some point, and that's why they're successful, is because they tried something and it didn't work, so they tried something else. But these idiots don't even want to change their mind. If it's not working, they'll just double down on it.
Right. And that's what's so frustrating to me.
Yeah.
That they will literally, and I've done a lot of research on this, and it boils down to a term called cognitive dissonance.
Dissonance, yeah.
Dissonance. Yeah. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Sometimes
you got the right idea.
sometimes my country boy shit pops in there, and I fall short. But I think the social indoctrinations that so many of us people incur as we grow up, when things start to change, as we know they are, people have a real hard time with the change.
Yeah. Well, you've seen all my writings about quoting all these other cliches, but change is inevitable. Change is going to happen whether you want it or not. Right. So you might as well either figure out a way to deal with it, or you're going to be on their side, basically trying to avoid it. And it's just things happen. Shit happens. It's not going to go the way you want. So you got to deal with it. You got to deal with it the way that things are happening in reality. So
that's right, Mr. Ken. And we have got Richard Romine, who's just joined us on the program. How you doing, Rich? Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We want Rich. We've been talking about some of the different issues going on, but what we wanted to talk about foremost today on the program, Rich, is our upcoming book, The Rationalist Handbook. It's been written by a collaboration of who I happen to think are some of the most dynamic progressive writers in the country. And I kind of wanted you to give us an update of where we're at as far as we've got, I think, 80 chapters in the book, and we're looking for it to be published relatively soon, correct?
I would guess October.
Okay.
It'll take I'm still writing chapter 80. It should be done tomorrow. I'm about halfway through it. But then it has to be put together into a single formatted piece, and then it has to go to the editor. And then at that point, then we'll go ahead and get it up to have it published.
Outstanding. I wanted you to know that I had on my website, I had put together about 6 of the 7 of the chapters. And I read them, to get a flow of how it's rolling. And I'm telling you, I think you guys have done a masterful job. And I think we're looking at an Amazon bestseller here. I really do.
Well, I think you should include yourself in there. I think there's 4 chapters that you wrote, which I very much appreciate. This is a first-time piece of pure network architecture, which is you guys taking some of the ideas that I began with and then writing ideas, your own ideas of how it relates into it, and writing your chapters. Taking something and making it better, each of you, in your own way. Like there's 100 ways to get to the same place. And so if we do that, it gets to become something interwoven, much stronger by having more people involved in it and putting in their ideas, concepts.
Well, why don't you go ahead and give an intro on the whole concept, Rich, just so.
Okay, well, the book itself is it's called the Rationalist Handbook. And the reason I decided to go with rationalism is because are you guys familiar with Isaac Asimov?
Oh yeah,
he was my hero growing up, and he's a rationalist. And some of his writings on rationalism fit right into his books. That you have to have, you have to live in reality. You have to understand what's around you. You have to understand what's happening around you. Your eyes and your senses all are your key things that make things happen for you. But what's happening now is that propaganda, there's a whole propaganda network. In fact, there's more than one. There are the media is owned by the people who are trying to force us to do what they want to do.
right.
And so, right now things are irrational because what's truthful, honest, logical, and ethical aren't happening. Mm-hmm. As long as we stay with the 4 pillars of democracy: truth, logic, ethics, honesty of intent. Okay, then this integrity of decision and ethical action go with them. But that's the government does, and that's what the media has to do. We're concerned with truth, logic, ethics, and honesty of intent for us as individuals.
Mm-hmm.
If as long as you stay with that, things are going to go well. But what's happened now is everything is gotten out of kilter because rationalism isn't how things work. It's all emotionalism. It's all ideology. They see what the goal is and they fit everything to it. Rationalism is opposite of that. Their goal is not the end. They seeing what is real and seeing what is really happening. That is the goal of rationalism, and then make corrections from that. Reality is the key to everything. Whereas with ideology, it's the ideology, they try to fit everything to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the basic difference between the two, and what we're seeing now. And that's why I think foundationism is the best choice for us at this point. I don't think we can elect our way out of this. I don't think we can continue as we are and have it work at all. It's going to go to an authoritarian. It's going to be simplified one way or the other. I prefer it go to direct democracy, whereas we get rid of all these politicians and we set up a system of direct democracy where we vote for issues as opposed to people. Now, there's a lot of versions of that. It doesn't have to be a direct, all direct democracy. It can be a hybrid version of that. But the way it is right now, we have no access to government. We have no access to the media. They're all protected. We can't touch them. We can't do anything about it. They tell us what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where foundationism is so different. It's like taking the power pyramid and turning it upside down. The real power is at the bottom, and the people is what is now the top are there to serve the pleasure of the people. Whatever we decide on an issue, they make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
That is what is so different.
Ken.
And it's a complete reversal of the power structure.
Right.
In other words,
it is. I mean,
at that point,
not complete, but mostly.
Yeah. No, but effectively.
I would like to take a moment right here to interject something to add in addition to what you were speaking of, Mr. Rich. Something I wrote today. It's kind of lengthy, but it's not too long, and I'll try not to bore you too much. But I think this is how I feel. It's one reason why I'm a proud member of the Foundation's movement, and I'm gonna just write what was on my mind. I'm just gonna read what I wrote and let you guys give me some feedback. I have worked hard to educate myself using my own fact check sources. I think we are seeing right now the real effects of disinformation has on our society, coupled with the reality of the dumbing down of America, has created a shitstorm of play army in the woods yahoos who have substituted the small penis with an AR-15.
Yep.
My travels throughout my life have shown to me we have pockets of deep ignorance in America. In 1971, I came to understand that the politics of my family was only not for me, as history has shown us, and history does not lie, that their political choices were not in their best interests. But this is not singular to my family. My research and practical experience have taught me when it comes to politics, a huge swath of our electorate is fucked up as a box of Cracker Jacks with no surprise inside.
Well, that's quite a surprise.
In my advocacy, I have been studying the traits of the right-wing authoritarian. In this study, the term cognitive dissonance became clear in my mind. The state of having inconsistent thoughts, beliefs, or attitudes, especially as related to behavioral decisions and attitude changes. What this means, folks, in layman terms, is all that shit your mom and daddy taught you, or you're hearing in your church, school, or workplace when contradicted by facts, creates, excuse me, folks, got some people interrupting me here. What this does, hold on, folks, I'm sorry. What this does in my advocacy, I've been studying the right wing attitudes, and what this means in layman terms is all this shit your mommy and daddy taught you, or you're hearing it in the church, school, or workplace, when contradicted by facts, creates a denial effect in the brain, which results in some stupid, batshit crazy fuckers running around believing the world is flat, climate change is a hoax, voter fraud is an epidemic, and windmills cause cancers and all kinds of other conspiratorial bullshit.
Yeah.
Nowhere is this factoid more upfront and personal than the mask mandate. What COVID has exposed more than the fact we need Medicare for all, it has shown that our country has turned into a nation of whiny, self-centered types who will only accept what their social indoctrinations will allow them to. Any person with any sense of balance, and I want to restate that, any person with any sense of balance can see the cornucopia of social ills has reached a tipping point in this country. You can hunker down and hold on to your cognitive dissonance, or you can choose to franchise yourself in the process and fight for more to vote, not less. I could sit here and break down every issue for you. But for my independent, progressive, democratic, socialist friends, our goal is not to throw out our hands up in surrender, but to buck up, chin up, and fight like hell against the racist oligarchy running this show by their influence peddling up on the hill and inside the Beltway.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, that's what Citizens United gave us, was the legalization of graft, the buying and selling of political influence in politicians.
Absolutely.
At the point where Scalia said that corporations were people and money was speech, you have to remember the old saying, money doesn't talk, it swears. That's what Bob Dylan said. And what happens is they ended up buying most of Congress, most of their donor class. So we ended up without having a representational democracy, because people don't have as much money as the Mercers and the Koch brothers. So at that point,
right,
they legalized graft, like the lobbyists legalized bribery.
Yeah,
so with legalized bribery and graft, what do we got left?
Right, we've got what we got,
which ain't much, baby.
But I would also add, and Ken, we'll get your thoughts in here, and I'm almost done when I'm finished with this. But the underlying issue, in my point of view, that affects us more than any other is racism. I grew up having to hear, and I'm going to speak bluntly on this show. This is my show, and I can speak it. Okay,
go right ahead.
I grew up in a community where I heard all the time, Johnny talks like a nigger. Johnny dances like a nigger. Don't try and have a puppy love situation with a black girl you knew since second grade, and you will be the talk of the community, including the kids' parents and the damn teachers. The one thing COVID has done is expose the deep-seated chasm we have in this country. The political divide is not just political. It is a friend to friend, person to person, father to son kind of divide. And for many, we have reached a point that extraordinary measures are in order. And that's why I choose to join the Foundations movement. America is not going back to Jim fucking Crow. There are already 75 democracy installed, socially democracy installed programs that are prime examples of social democracy, from the military to public schools to our highways and byways. America is moving on from the Ronald Reagan snow job. Even in the racist South, attitudes are changing. The demographics are changing. The Lee Atwater Southern strategy is less effective. So what is the order of the day in the Republican Party? Voter suppression. Mm-hmm. The only people who are trying to steal the vote are Donald Trump and the cracker jacks that believe his shit. But this goes back to the right-wing authoritarian personality who latch on to Trump first. It was Nixon, Reagan, Bush's, whoever is the perceived leader must be obeyed. The right-wing authoritarian is a personality type that describes somebody who is naturally submissive to their authority figures, acts aggressively in the name of the said authorities, and is a conformist in thoughts and behavior. And for this writer, this is Trumpism in a nutshell.
Yep.
And I'd like to get your thoughts on that, Ken.
Well, I'll put it this way. I started, one of my businesses right before 9/11. And one of the guys that I had working for me, I won't say working for me because I didn't pay him at that point, but he was working with me to start this business. And I had the realization one day, this guy's a pretty smart guy. He's had at that time at least as much experience in aviation that I did when we were starting this company. And I realized one day that he's not really helping. He's going along with what I'm doing. He's following me, basically. And I was a little upset by that because I needed somebody to help me out so that I wasn't doing everything myself, if you know what I mean. But that's exactly what you're talking about, Johnny, is that people people get lazy or whatever it is, but they decide to follow someone else rather than, keeping their own initiative and contributing.
Right. Yeah, I was always taught, Mr. Ken, don't follow the crowd to be popular.
Yep.
Don't be afraid to take a stand, even though it's not the prevailing viewpoint of the community or the city. Don't be a follower, be a leader. And I'm gonna tell you something. When you do that, there's a price to be paid for it.
Mm-hmm.
And the winning goal, the winning solution from it all is the wonderful people you meet along the way.
Mm-hmm.
True.
And Mr. Rich, what we have always held since the first day that we got together and just said we wanted to do something with this foundation movement is that we knew there had to be a fundamental change in the direction this country is going. Are we people that have all the answers? No. But I think with your leadership, Mr. Rich, we are a people striving to find the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. I think we have something that no one else really offers right now. Everyone else is trying to stay within the accepted structure. I think that's how we've gotten beaten so badly by the cons, the regressives, that they haven't, but the Democrats have. And the democratic system, the two-party system, isn't designed to fight against what's happening now. So we need a vehicle, we need a structure that has all the things that rich people have: security, lawyers, all these things that they have. We need the same thing to go against them in the system. We need to be outside of the system, but we need to use the system also.
Right.
But again, it's always those four things: truth, logic, ethics, and honesty of intent. Those are the things that will attract people to us, I believe, because that's the exact opposite of what's happening now.
Yeah.
Well, I think that, and I, Ken, and Chris both, I'll get your comments after I finish, but I think America is starving for it. I think we're seeing it every day in our news feeds. Why? I mean, I don't think anyone that can consider himself a rational, intelligent person can say that we need to continue with the status quo that's going on in this country right now.
Yeah.
It's not a status quo. We're going down the tubes.
Right.
Well, we're going down the tubes, though, because half of us, well, I won't even say half of us, the loudest part of us is insisting on their way of doing things rather than, what the society, what the world is demanding that we do to deal with reality. Right?
Right.
Agreed.
Agreed. Absolutely. That's why we're all coming together. And I think that's why we're all homogenizing ourselves together with our points of view and using our assorted talents to create an atmosphere of where I don't want just some left-wing person to join our movement. I want everybody to join our movement.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's no better example of, what doesn't work than what's going on right now.
Exactly.
Bingo.
And I think if we can get people to realize that, we can't survive if this keeps going like this.
Right.
There's a better way, but we need to make that better way happen.
Agreed. Our greatest recruiter is going to be the cons and the progressives themselves.
Yeah.
They're going to jump that shark. In fact, I think they already have, to the point where you just can't live with them anymore.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, Johnny, voter suppression is part of that. I mean, I think for the first time, people are starting to see that, trying to restrict the right to vote is the exact opposite of what needs to happen in this country.
Absolutely, sir.
Yeah, you're right.
And I think it's also put a big old bullet point up there that shows without any reservations whatsoever that the Republican Party cannot win a national election when
Right.
there is a high voter turnout.
Yep.
And that is the reason, not any other of this voter fraud bullshit that's non-existent that they use as an excuse. It's all a bunch of crapola.
Well, of course it is. I mean, that's their whole point now, is that if you say it is, and you say it long enough and loud enough, people will believe what is not really going on.
Right.
I mean, Trump even said it. He told us that 3 years ago.
Right.
You know? And all their people bought into it. All of us didn't.
Right.
And you know, I have made no bones about it. I grew up in a very conservative, right-wing Republican community, and the great people. And it's not that there's anything wrong with these people, but from what I have learned from my own study is that and I'm adamant about this, is that our social indoctrination is how we're raised up. You know, I will be honest with you. I had a black kid sit with me in my school desk the first day schools were integrated in the schools, Wayne County schools in North Carolina. His name was Ricky Wooten. Now, I want you guys to know I was in the 3rd grade, and they integrated the schools, and he got Ricky Wooten, black kid. Rest in peace, brother Ricky. He got stuck without a desk, and he had to sit next to me in a little double desk I happened to be sitting in. And I want you to know, at recess that day, I had a bunch of 3rd graders calling me every kind of racial slur there was.
Yeah.
And I'm in the 3rd grade, and I start crying, and I'm thinking to myself, where do these kids get this from?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, oh, I know where. I hear the same shit in my house.
Yeah.
Are you right?
Well, I got a lot of stories I can tell you on this, because I went to Europe when I was a toddler, basically, and grew up. I spent the first 6 years of my life in Germany and England, where there was some, but not like in the South of America, of the United States. There's some racism, but not like it's institutionalized here. And when I came back to Europe, from Europe to the United States for the first time, I was blown away by the stuff that goes on here. And that was back in 1963. Okay. And in my opinion, it's gotten a little bit better until 1966 or 67, when the Southern strategies tried to reverse all that. But it's back to at least as bad now as it was in 1963.
Yeah.
Right. And the reason I bring up racism is because I've been hard at this advocacy stuff since 2014, and really all my life. And I've always, in the House of Public Discourse, looked for the causation of issues. What is the reason behind the causation? And I'll be honest with you guys, I don't think I'm overstating it or over the top. I think racism is a major factor in just about every fucked up situation we got in America right now.
Well, how can you think otherwise? I mean, this is the way the country started. First the people came over here and they stole the land from the Native Americans.
Right.
So they were the first victims of racism, and then they needed workers, so they brought people in from Africa to do the work. So this is from day one. America from day one has been racist.
And Mr. Ken, there is a modern day correlation with that.
Well, of course there is.
I happen to know for a fact that, because I lived in Texas for 15 years, I happen to know for a fact those right to work, white racist bosses were bringing the illegal immigrants in themselves because they didn't want to have to pay benefits. They didn't want to have to pay the minimum wage. They didn't want.
I spent when we came back from Europe, we moved to California. Okay, that's the other place where it started.
Right.
Okay, I think it started in California first because it's a little, well, I won't say closer, but there's a lot of farming jobs that needed to be done in California.
Right.
And they didn't want to pay the going wage for people to do that. part of
Right.
it. There was lots of mansions down there that people that needed gardeners and lawn cutters and stuff, and that's how all that business got started. But that you're exactly right about that.
Well, that's why I call it the abuse culture. It's not only just racism, that's just a big piece of it, but it's the way corporations treat employees.
Well, exploitive.
Yeah, it's all the way through.
Yeah.
And that's why I call foundationism an evolutionary system, a change, because away from the abuse culture to a culture of reaching for the potential of each person.
Mm-hmm.
That is an evolution. And
Well,
that's how it's going to have to go. I mean, as far as it is an evolution in thought.
Well, it should be. Yes.
It is, because believe me, I don't know if anyone else thinks that way, to be very honest.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you guys, of course, but the bottom line is that we've always abused each other, and
Right.
just whether it's been women or people with black or brown skin, there's always been a reason to abuse somebody to make money, to have power.
Yep.
And those are the things that, when things began to change in the 60s, that's what drove this rebellion that we're seeing now.
Mm-hmm.
This insurrection, because they were losing the people they could abuse.
Well, abuse and control. Yeah.
Abuse and control. You're right. But, women have had it almost, black women, it doesn't get a lot worse.
Yeah.
But, women of all colors have had, look at what happened with Como. This is now something that is began to change a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But Donald Trump has got away with it for decades.
Yep. Well, and people are acting like Cuomo, just because he's a Democrat, I guess, but they're acting like this has just started with him.
No.
I mean,
No.
they forget about Jeffrey Epstein. They forget about the movie mogul guy, whatever his name was. I can't remember his name.
Weinstein, I think.
Weinstein,
Yeah.
Weinstein, yeah. And this has been it's one after the other.
Right. Yeah, we did a major investigative report on the Jeffrey Epstein case, Ken, back 2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and the who's who of political figures is on that list, both Democrat and Republican.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I laugh at this QAnon thing. And Matt Gantz. I mean, come on.
It's
it's not just Donald Trump. Bill Clinton had some issues. There's others as well.
Yeah.
But
rich and powerful men have felt this is open. They're all fair game. Women are fair game.
Yep.
And so it's just the entire culture has been based in abuse of one sort of another.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm saying it's an evolutionary movement, because it's about the potential of each of us, not about the getting rich or powerful from abusing others.
Right.
And that is 180 degrees. And that is what most people will have a difficult time with.
Mm-hmm.
They don't realize that their whole life has been based in one form of abuse or another.
It took me, Mr. Rich, damn near a lifetime to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
I will admit, I was a glutton for a punishment.
Yeah.
I constantly ran back to the abusive culture that I was raised in, because I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
Well, it seems normal, right? Because everybody's that way.
Yeah.
Yep.
It wasn't until
Back to what you're used to. Yeah.
It wasn't until I decided that I'm a better person than these people are making me out to be, that I decided to bury my nose in research and figure out for myself. And this goes to what you're talking about, Ken. It's we've got to become a society that researches and studies on our own, instead of listening to what someone else tells us.
Yeah.
We can't depend on our news media anymore.
No.
We can't depend on our electoral process anymore.
Yeah.
I'm sad to say.
Well, if it's not getting done, you got to do something else. You just can't keep letting it go on like this. Let me raise another example with you guys. How many of you are familiar with network marketing companies like Amway and?
I am.
Okay.
I am.
All right.
I can tell you a sad story there if you ever want to hear
I've got one too. My point, though, is that even that is based on exploitation of people.
Yes.
You know?
Right.
I mean,
that's all that business is the exploitation of people.
Exactly.
I got into, yeah. Go ahead, Ken. I'm sorry.
It took me a long time to figure out why I can't do this business, because I've not only Amway, but I've tried other network marketing things too, and it's all about recruiting people below you so that you can make money off of their efforts.
Right.
It's pure exploitation.
That's why I could not. I tried it and I could not succeed.
And that's why I could never succeed at it either, is because that's not the way I work. I mean,
no,
if you're gonna win, the person that's with you has to win too. You know. And
exactly.
And that's not the way they work. And see, that's the problem with business in America. It's mostly like that. You know, in one form or another. So that's why it's going to be very difficult, in my mind, to see any real change in this country, is because it's like the exploitation of Indians and blacks and Mexicans and Chinese and Japanese, and you can go on and on.
Right.
But that is so endemic in our culture that I just don't see a way to get over that.
Nor I.
It's going to be very difficult, but that's why when I say evolution, that's what it's going to take.
Yeah.
And many times you might be surprised how this could go much quicker than you might think, because people now, it used to be that 80% of the people exploited 20% of the people. Would you say that's true?
Yeah.
Now it's 10% of the people exploit 90% of the people.
Yeah, exactly.
That is why we're going to get a lot of recruitment from the people who are exploiting others. They're going to come if you offer a realistic and real change, or basically alternative. Then we can grow very fast, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think, Rich, I don't jump in here real quick. And tell me, I want you to correct me if I'm wrong here. But if we get things rolling the way we know we can, are there not like referendum type votes or petitions? I mean, that we as a group could, what is the legal term I'm looking for? File civil lawsuits.
RICO. Yes. And that would be something we could do, but we'd have to have attorneys with us. Good ones.
I know.
And we'd have to be able to hang in there for years, because they will drag it out for years. But being able to prove the connections from the Koch brothers down to voter suppression, I mean, they're giving it to us. They're giving us the highway to everything.
Well, they are. How many of you guys know an honest attorney?
I don't.
That's
I went to school. I went to school to become an attorney.
I tell you what, I'm gonna call his name. He's on my friends list. He's from back home. I don't think he agrees with me politically or my political views, but I would say he's an honest attorney, and that would be Mr. Jeff Holtz down in Goldsboro, North Carolina. But he probably wouldn't take my case because he doesn't agree with my politics.
Well,
I will.
It shouldn't be about politics, though. I mean, if
that's
it goes
right.
to politics, we're going to lose. So, I mean,
that's right.
Got to go beyond that.
And I don't think, and Rich, I'll jump in here and I'll let you finish what you were getting ready to say. But correct me if I'm wrong, sir, but the Foundation's movement is not a political solution. It's a people solution.
That's right. If you become a political party, you'll turn into a political party.
Yeah.
Right.
So you've got to stay away from that. You've got to put so much pressure on the existing political parties. They can't live without you, and they'll do what you tell them to do. Otherwise, because they're so ingrained, they could fight us for 50 years.
Oh, exactly. Exactly.
If with a third party, they could fight us for 50 years and we'd never get anywhere.
Yep. Yep.
So what you have to do, you have to rip out their base, both of them, and
Right.
and make sure that they know that they've got to tell the truth. They've got to be logical and ethical, and it's got to be real.
Yeah.
And that's the only way you can change this, because right now, I can think of no other way.
Yeah, I can't either. That's why I'm saying that, if it goes political, this is gonna go nowhere like everything else.
You're right.
So there's got to be a way to appeal directly to people that your problems can be solved by other means other than using politicians.
Right.
Right.
And I think that's a very good point, Ken. And that's it. That's why I'm saying it's an evolutionary movement. We have done this way for 245 years.
And look where we are. Exactly.
And look where we are. We're at the end stages of what was a good idea.
Yeah.
Bottom line now.
Yeah.
It's been so shredded that it's no longer anything like the ideals that began everything. We need to keep the ideals and get rid of the bullshit that's been put there to make sure the ideals never worked.
Well, and look at what the Republicans are doing now. You remember when they used to be the champions of the Constitution?
That was always a lie.
Well, I know
that was always a lie.
I know it was a lie, but they put up a good story. But look what they're doing now. They are actually trying to revoke the Constitution.
They sure are. They absolutely are, and that's what I just cannot fathom how people cannot see that.
Exactly. I don't see it either. I don't know. I can't understand it either.
I do not understand how people can. And that brings me, Mr. Ken, back to my thoughts about the free thought is becoming extinct in America. We've become a nation of where we're not free thinkers as we should be, in my point of view, or at least a large segment of our population have subdued themselves to authoritarian figures like Donald Trump.
Yeah. Well, the Republicans aren't stupid. They realized that the silent majority was who they needed to get to, and they've done a good job of it, in my opinion.
I have to agree with that.
Well,
sure. The hardcore people they've already got, so they don't need to work with them. It's just the other people that are on the fence that they needed to get.
Well, I think that's where they're vulnerable now. They weren't 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But I think they're vulnerable there now because it's gotten so insane that anyone that's not crazy into their movement can start to realize there's some dangerous shit going on here.
Right. I wrote an article back in 2014 about that very issue that Facebook will not allow me to post.
Oh yeah.
About the dangers of right-wing libertarianism. And I did some really deep research, guys. I wrote several articles about dominionism. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that.
Oh, I am. Definitely am.
Yeah. And we had Mike Pence, vice president, a known dominionist, one assassin's bullet away from the White House.
Yeah.
And these people are some dangerous people. Very dangerous. And we're seeing that being played out now more than ever. Since January 6th, January 6th for me is like the spotlight moment for batshit crazy right-wing populism.
Well, yeah. How could it not be? Just think about this. This is what I don't understand about the people I talk to about this. If it weren't for the National Guard coming, we would be an authoritarian country right now. We were that close. Nobody wants to admit that, but those guys would have killed everybody in that building who was ready to certify Biden's election.
Right.
So, and they were feet away from starting it.
And the Pentagon was helping them. Was helping them by not allowing help to get there.
Well, I don't think it was just the Pentagon, but the Pentagon didn't want to act without authority from the president, basically. Right. And Trump was not about to let the military do that for them, because they wanted the people to kill all those people in the Capitol. If the National Guard had gotten there in time, this never would have gotten as far as it did.
You're right.
So I'm kind of biased in this way anyway. But the military, I don't think would have gone for a coup.
No, I don't think they would have either.
And maybe they held out, but I really think it's Trump that was keeping them from going to the Capitol.
I would agree with that. But they weren't allowed to go.
Well,
that was the thing. Whoever it was, I have no idea. But somebody didn't allow to go.
You understand about the power structure of the District of Columbia, right?
I do, and I know they had to go through the Pentagon to get release to the National Guard.
Yeah, right.
Even though they were sitting 10 miles away, waiting to go.
Yeah, it's just like a military base, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. So, in order to fight on a military base, they have to have authority from up above.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean I think that needs to change too, but that's another issue. I don't even want to get involved in that one. But
I think that's on the agenda of things to get done.
Yeah.
Right. Well, guys, I personally think what we're seeing right now is the collapse of neoliberalism.
Undoubtedly, it's not working. So of course.
I think we're actually experiencing, Mr. Ken, the pains of it. I think we've been seeing it for a long, long time. Yeah. And I now think the symptoms are manifesting themselves into a full-blown disease, for lack of term. Neoliberalism, we hear the term socialism bandied about all the time, but you never hear the term neoliberalism. It's a very challenging one.
It's because they don't want to use the word liberal.
Yeah, that's right. It does not mean liberal.
Yeah, exactly.
Liberalism is not a new mandate. Neoliberal politics helped create the third world, in my point of view. If you look back to the 18th century, differences between the rich and the poor back then were nothing like the wealth inequality we see in today's global societies. The force,
in the English monarchy, maybe.
Yeah. The force. And I'd like to hear your comments on this, Rich, because you're a bank guy. The force implementation of market principles, a hallmark of neoliberalism, has forced many nations to a third world status.
Oh yeah.
Protectionism and state intervention developed rich and developed society, while neoliberalism's created slums.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's also include this country.
There's no more bigger slums. I can tell you something right now. I lived in Third Ward, Houston, Texas, for 3 years, and you won't find a more depressed community anywhere in the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've traveled the world. I've seen it, like you say, all over the United States. Philadelphia comes to mind. Oakland, California.
Philadelphia is terrible.
But my point here is that I've been to South America and Central America too, and I've seen where a century more of that kind of stuff has set them back. I mean, there's people living in some of these banana republic countries. They don't give a damn about the government. They are so far removed from it, which is good for them because they can live their own lives, but they have nothing and they're happy about it. Okay. Right. They're able to wake up in the morning and have a good day, even though that they're living, hand to mouth. And that's the way these countries operate down there. That's how they control everything.
That's how they control it here too.
And that's what's happening here in America too now too. Are you right? You're exactly right.
Right. the neoliberalist desires to privatize traditional government programs such as public schools, social securities,
post office, goes on and on.
Yes, and others do nothing more than undercut our democracy, is what it does. These realities form the often unspoken tenets of the political revolution of Bernie Sanders. That has become, Bernie Sanders, like him or not, changed the political conversation forever in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully.
Well, certainly for the Democrats.
Yes.
So,
but progressives and independents and Americans across all spectrums of political ideologies are sick and tired of neoliberalism and its virtual corporate parliament and the politicians they have in their hip fucking pockets. It's just that simple. America's fed up with it. Now, there's some people that want to tear everything down and start all over again. I don't know that I'm that way. I think there's some good things, some good institutions in America that we should hang on to and fight for.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Well,
Agreed with that too.
I don't think we should murder the baby either to get something new.
That's a whole nother show, Brother Ken. But it fits right into what we're talking about.
Well, it does. That's why I said that.
But why I was such a fan of Bernie, and I still am, and why I think our political revolution is more than just about Bernie Sanders. And I think our movement doesn't stop when that political campaign ends either. My feelings is that, and why I love Bernie so much is that don't tell me we can't, you know? Mm-hmm. I'm tired of all these so-called pragmatists telling me, no, we can't. Mm-hmm. More and more Americans of all ages are coming to understand that, yes, we can. And that's what's got these people voter suppression and all that bullshit going on, in my point of view.
Well, yes, we can is how we ended up landing on the moon before we really had the technology to do it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I mean, it's a tenet of the basic tenet, like apple pie for Americans, to say that, yes, we can. It's not that we can or that we shouldn't. It's yes, we can. But that's all been corrupted.
Yeah. Well, Bernie's trying to finish out the potential of the New Deal. That's basically what he's trying to do. Mm-hmm. Things that FDR could never get done, he's trying to finish it out. And I think that it's important to understand that it goes way back. It's not just Bernie Sanders. It's Franklin Roosevelt.
Right.
It's the people behind him. All were trying to do much the same. This isn't something brand new. And even though the economists keep trying to say that it is not.
Right.
So they have been at war with the New Deal since 1980, and well before that. But it's time to turn the tide on this. The New Deal, the potential of the New Deal, the Bernie Sanders extension of the New Deal is exactly what we need.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I really do. I tell you, guys, we're reaching a little past the hour time. I think we need to wrap this up.
Okay.
What I would like to do is for all those that are listening to us, I'd like to play a video that we produced that kind of introduces you to the foundation movement. I want to thank everyone for listening in. You've been listening to the Progressive Talk Zone with Johnny Hill. I've been joined by my guests, Richard Romine, Ken Whitfield, Christopher Witt Dimont. We're broadcasting live from our home studio here at the House of Public Discourse Radio.com in the House of Public Discourse Forum on your Facebook page. And we want to bid you all a fair adieu and wish you the best and good health from the House of Public Discourse Forum.
The Foundation Movement. The beginning. We ask you to consider joining a great evolution. Help us to make our democracy fully functional. To go beyond the political parties and to see an American solution, not a Republican or a Democratic one. Not to create a new party, but to build a human-centric nation. When what matters is what you do as a human being, not who you are, who your parents are, or what color your skin is.
Who your parents are,
Political
or
parties,
what color your skin
however,
is.
can only achieve
Political
that by
parties,
gaining power
however,
within a
can only
monopolistic
achieve that by
political
gaining
system,
power within a
since they are
monopolistic
just private
political
clubs.
system. Since they are just
The
private
Foundations
clubs.
movement is the
The
structure from which
Foundations
we
movement
drive
is the
change,
structure
an
from which we
American
drive
evolution.
change, an American
Democracy
evolution.
itself is not the problem, but both parties
Democracy
are to blame.
itself is not the problem, but
We owe it
both
to the
parties are
founders,
to
their
blame.
Constitution, and the founding documents to make the necessary changes. We ask you to join us on a journey to a place we have only imagined. This is not a journey to some new policy or law, but one to the stars. We shall continue this journey, but we shall also be the beginning of it. We seek to build something wonderful. We are the builders of a society that will last and not destroy itself. To give what we can to the future and be the guardians of that futurity, the builders of starships and man. We may not be smarter or better than other people, but we are those who look into the future to see what we can build. We are choosing to build our humanity while building structures that will enhance the genius within all of us in contrast to the idiot. The Foundations movement is based on peer network architecture. It was the way the internet began. Some of you may remember shareware. People would take what others would build and add their talents to it. We had the internet until Google and its friends messed it up for profit. We do not have the money to buy things and people, nor should we. We don't own television or radio stations. But we own ourselves. We must preserve the basic principles, not change them. Truth, logic, ethics, and honesty must remain forever the same, otherwise, our work will be assumed as has happened to so much in our society and turned against us. We ask you today to join the Foundations movement. This is the time to not be afraid of each other. Let's see straight through the lies and myth of those we call the cons, their private propaganda machine, and their hidden agenda. We shall begin by organizing. We shall be leaderless, which makes it difficult for the cons to target us. Our starting point will be a code of agreement. We agree to reach a set of simple and easily understood goals to accomplish a real and lasting change, outside of the existing political structure. There is no easy or quick way out of the trap we are in, but there is a way out together. We have lost the present, but we shall win the future. Our path can be hard, for it is full of possible failure and tragedy, but it is one we must walk so our children and theirs have a future where people can discover and live into the potential they were born with, as with our society. We were born as a nation, as a society, with great potential. Isn't it time we live up to that? This must be the time when we cease to celebrate past failures and find the potential in all of us. Instead of building in failure, as the current system does. We begin today by reaching to the stars, not stopping at the moon. The Foundations ask you to search your souls and share your abilities to make the world better. We are more than we were, but not yet what we will be.
Guys, thank you for coming on the show tonight.
Glad to do it, Johnny.
Yeah, thanks.
Ken, thank you so much, sir. Your wisdom is just so grand, sir. I just enjoy talking with you every time. It really
I agree.
is.
I agree.
Yeah, and you too as well, Rich. I am so proud to be associated with individuals like you, and I just hope that we can create a positive change, or help promote a positive change in our country. And I want to thank everyone for listening in to the House of Public Discourse Radio.com, on the House of Public Discourse Forum, on your Facebook page. Good night, everyone.